So we are trying to determine quadratic rules, and in this question we are told find the equation of the quadratic passing through, and then we're given 3 points. Now when we're trying to figure out a quadratic equation, we know it can exist in 3 forms. It can either be in my 2x-intercept form, or when I'm giving a turning point it could be in the turning point form, or when I'm giving 3 arbitrary points it could be in this form. Well, from this question it's quite clear that I've been given 3 arbitrary points. So step number 1 is going to be writing down the form that I'm going to be using, and that form is going to be this. So let me write that down. It's going to be y equals ax squared plus bx plus c. Perfect. Let's now come to step number 2. Step number 2 is going to be subbing in each of these points into the equation in order to make a system of equations. So let me begin that. So let me grab a red and let me start with the equation 1 and 8. So I'm going to sub that in. I'm going to have 8 equals a1 squared plus b1 plus c. So hopefully you can see here, in my y spot I put an 8, and in my x spot I put a 1. So that means my final answer here will be 8 equals 1 squared is just 1, so it would just be a plus b plus c. So that is my first equation. Let us now move on to our next one. Let me do this in blue. So now we're moving on to this one. So we had a, now we're moving on to this one. So this is -1, -2, which we're turning into, in my y spot, I'm putting -2 equals a, then I'm putting -1 squared plus b, -1 into my x again, plus c. So that is going to turn into -2 equals -1 squared is positive, so just a, but then -b plus c. And let me highlight that, it is that. And finally, to our last one, 2 and 8, I do the same thing. I put in 2 and 8 into it. So in my y spot I put 8, into my x spot I put 2 squared plus b, 2 again plus c. So in my x spot I put my 2's, and then finally what I'm going to end up with is 8 equals 4a plus 2b plus c. So those are my 3 equations. Perfect. So now we come to our third step, And my third step is using my CAS calculator. So let me come over here and let me bring up my CAS. Here it is. And I'm going to go new. I want the calculator. I'm going to go menu. I'm going to go algebra. I'm going to go solve system of equations. I'm going to go solve system of equations. I have 3 equations here, so when it says number of equations, I will say 3. How many, what are the variables called? Well, I have a, b, and c, so I don't want x, y, and z. I want a, b, and c. So I have 3 equations, my variables are a, b, and c. I hit OK. And now what I do is I simply type them in. So my first one is a equals a plus b plus c. A equals a plus b plus c. My next one is -2 equals a minus b plus c. And my final one is a equals 4a plus 2b plus c. Double check that you've written them all in correctly. That looks good. And then hit enter. And as you can see here, we've been given a equals -5 over 3, b equals 5, and c equals 14 over 3. So let's keep those in our heads and now write them down. So my fourth step is, actually, let's keep this in the third step because we've solved the CAS to get a, b, and c. I'm being pedantic. So a is, it was -5 on 3. B was 5 and C was 14 on 3. Now we'll come to our fourth step. my fourth step is simply going to be subbing in A, B, and C into what we originally wrote down, so the form that we're working with. So let me grab this, let me copy it, let me bring it down. Perfect. So we know that in my A spot, I'm going to have -5. Whoops. I'm going to have -5 on 3. In my B spot, I will have 5. And in my C spot, I will have 14 on 3. So my final answer is y equals -5 over 3x squared plus 5x plus 14 over 3. Let me rub this one out, we don't need to see that. That is my final answer. I'll give that a highlight. Hopefully this video was helpful in showing you how to use the CAS calculator and how to determine the quadratic rule when you're given 3 arbitrary points. If you have any difficulties with anything I've gone over, don't hesitate to come and talk to me.